Right, welcome back. We're back with the Citroen C3 Picasso. We're going to change all 4 discs and pads. They're all very badly worn and scorn. Don't know if let's see if I can zoom in and have a... Oh, the light's not that great. But they all need changing. I've never done a Citroen one before, so it'll be new for me. And I thought we'll take the opportunity to do a few of the maintenance things while the wheel's off that a lot of people don't bother doing. They'll sort of just change the pads and discs and, you know, not take the time to really... oh great, someone's car alarm's going off there, but... Right, so we got all this lot here to go on. Pads, front pads, rear pads. Front discs, rear discs, and these rear discs, which I'm slightly unfamiliar with, they've got a built-in bearing, so I think it should be reasonably straightforward, but I've never done one of those before. And I've got myself a reasonable socket set, but as luck would have it, I've had to go out and buy a single socket, just one size I happen not to have. It's a really expensive way of getting sockets when you're buying them individually like that. I've got this for the rear wheel hub nut. It is 36mm. I don't know, 35 might be the right size, but they didn't have that. But I don't know, it seems reasonably snug. There's a bit of movement there when I put the nut in, but that was quite expensive. I think just that was £12 just to buy that one socket. But sod's law that mine only goes up to 32 there. So we'll get the vehicle all up on axle stands and jacked up, and we'll show you the next stage then. Right, I'm just about to loosen the wheel nuts on here, and one bit of advice I'd give, especially with regards to Citroen and I think Peugeot, it's all in the same part of the group. I got rid of all the locking nuts on here. You've only just got to slip once and they're an absolute nightmare to get off, and then you end up damaging the locking nut. So get rid of all the locking nuts, and that's always a really, really good idea. And I don't think there's a big demand for Citroen alloys, so it's a chance you take. Obviously the nuts are there for a reason, but the best thing I ever did was getting rid of them, and before that I used to have a nightmare with them. So I know Citroen and Peugeot don't do a great locking nut, so I've got rid of those. So we'll just loosen these while the car's on the ground. Right, I don't know how well the camera picks it up, but let's see if I can get an angle. There is a very, very deep groove in the top edge and the lower edge of the brake where the pads are rubbing on, and these are the original factory fitted discs on here. So they haven't done too badly. They've done 61,000 miles, and to be honest, the brakes feel fantastic. Nothing feels wrong with them as such, but they look like, I think the safe thing would be to replace them. I don't know if you had the misfortune of seeing any of my other videos, but this is the same vehicle where I had the suspension problem, and we repaired that. It was a faulty top strut mount in the end, so we'll get that going. And another thing to be to really take note of when you're doing sort of badly worn pads and discs is when you put the new ones on, the reserve on the tank on the brake fluid, you're going to be pushing back a lot more fluid, so just keep an eye on that and make sure it doesn't overflow and you haven't got too much fluid. There's a good chance we'll probably have to extract some of the fluid out of there, so either bleed it out or extract it out one way or the other. Rightio, we'll crack on with this. We'll do the front one first, and then I'll do the rear one, and then well, for obvious reasons I won't show you the other side because it's a exact replica. All you need to do is take the brake caliper off, and to give myself half a chance, sort of giving it a good soaking in WD-40. I know it sounds common sense as well, but I've also put the steering on full lock. I see people struggling like that, and it just makes access so much easier. on the Citroen, by the way, that's a 13mm. To get the brake caliper supporter, whatever it's called here, off, it's a Torx bit, and it's a T55, the size of it. So make sure you got one of those. On a lot of cars it's just like a 17 or 15mm ordinary socket on there. So that's really important. So here goes. I don't know how difficult this is going to be, if they'll just play ball or if it'll here. Am I tightening or loosening that? Let's have a check now, make sure we're going the right way. That's loosening. Let's watch that brake. Let's try this bottom one first, that's a bit easier. Oh, they're not too bad, that was nice. This cables are, this brake line's a little bit in the way, so something to be aware of. Didn't expect that. What I might do is just use an ordinary spanner on that, because I'm struggling with this. Here we go. So this should. There we go. So I think, well, may as well whip it right off now. I was worried they were going to be rusted in, but not too bad. There's a chance for me to cheat a bit. I got my impact wrench here, so let's see if we can whip those off with that. Oh, trust me, need the adapter as well. So we're going to have to keep just wind that one in. Right. Then I have got a bungee cord here, so we'll just see if we can hang that out of the way. That should, there we go. Just come out. Just going to use this bungee cord just to hang it out of the way. That's really important. You don't really want to put any stress on that brake line. There we go. So now we've just got to try to take these off. Oh my gosh, that's tight. Right, I'm going to get a bigger socket and see if we can undo those a sec. Bigger socket, let's see if we've got a bit more joy with that. Oh my god. Whew. Oh, there we go. That's one. Oh, there we go. They were tight. Again, once I get them loose, I'll use my impact wrench and see struggling.
Wow.
I didn't realise how badly worn the pads were. Let's whip those out. Let's have a quick look at those. Oh, there's not much, not a great deal of meat on those, so they did need changing. So it wasn't just the discs. So we've got, obviously, if you're putting new discs on, it goes without question, put new pads in. So we'll change those as well. So they've definitely had it. But the surprising thing is the car brakes superbly. It got fantastic brakes, but hopefully it still will once I'm done. So we'll finish off whipping that off, and then I'll show you what. Here's another little tip. I've obviously got to undo these to extract the brake disc, and obviously what's happening is that's just turning round. So perhaps in future what I'll make sure is, while the caliper is still on, I can get someone to press the brakes and stop the wheels spinning. So the other wheel's off the ground as well. So what I might do is get my son, I'll put it in gear, I'll get my son to hold the other wheel still to stop that turning on the differential, and I'll undo this one then. So there's a little tip for you, undo those two little grub screws. But by the way, that's a T30 if you want to know the size of those. So here goes. He's filming at the moment, so he's going to just hold the wheel for me still while I undo. Right, we got the two little grub screws out. Because I'm not reusing these discs, but for any other reason, if you were just taking the disc off for, you know, for some maintenance reasons, I would suggest you don't do it the way I'm about to. I don't mind damaging the disc at the moment, so I'm going to give that a few good whacks with a hammer, and I'm not bothered about damaging it at all because we're not keeping it. But if you were, for obvious reasons, don't go whacking the mating surface of the pads there, and, you know, just take your time taking it off. So sometimes they come off really easily, sometimes you just got to belt it, give it some really good whacks, but we're about to find out. I'll just grab a hammer. So I was hitting 10 bells out of this disc and really struggling to get it off. I managed to get it off, but a really simple trick is the caliper carrier. I've obviously taken that, where the bolts go through those. I've used the bolts there and just driven them in, and then that's popped the disc off then. So we managed to get it off there. You can see where the two bolts were screwed up against there. So that's a nice simple trick to do. And you just hear a sudden pop and it pops off, and so there's something you know, you can use in future. Just make sure you got the right size bolt, or use the ones that came from the carrier if you're fortunate enough that they hit the back of the disc like that, and that caused it to pop off then. So while we're here as well, we'll have a quick look at the carrier, and from previous vehicles, hopefully that should just pop off there. There we go, and we can get that guide pin out, and it's a chance to just do a bit of maintenance on that. You see, that's fairly dry, so I'm going to put in a silicone grease and just make sure everything's nicely lubed up. So I'll grab some grease, and that's a sort of maintenance people don't sort of bother with, and it's really important actually, just to keep the brakes working really nicely, because they look like they're just about ready for greasing up again. So we'll grab that. A good little tip as well is don't use ordinary sort of multi-purpose grease. You've got to get the correct grease, because otherwise that will damage the rubbers, it will corrode the rubbers. So either like a silicone grease or there are other greases, I can't think what they are offhand now. And another thing a lot of people use, which isn't ideal for this, is copper grease, the copper slip. So something like that is ideal, to be honest. There are other ones, but I can't think of the top of my mind what it is. So we'll just whip those out. Normally, if they looked a bit rusty and thing, I'd give them a bit of a clean, but all I'll do is we'll just add in a bit more grease onto that, that's all. And I think they'll be fine then. So be generous, just, you know, they're good for another 60,000 miles then. There you go, a bit in there, and just slip that back in. You probably hear it, there we go. So you can feel that's moving really nice and freely, and we'll do the same for the other side. We'll see what that looks like. Yeah, when they're rusted, you know, really give them a good clean, but these aren't too bad actually. So it looks like it's quite important to know which is which, because I just noticed the two were different. So there's obviously a top and bottom one, so don't just whip them out, and take note which is which. So just give all that a good greasing up. So that is, I just think every time you do pads and discs, or just even if you're just doing the pads, just take the time to make sure the guide pins are nicely greased up as well. So they are really important for the braking. So right, we'll have a quick look at what we got in the box here. One of these is either the rear, or I'm guessing by the size of them they're the rear one. So let's open these up and see what we got in here. I hope we got the right stuff now. Don't they look a match? Let's have a quick look. I'm just lining them up. They look a pretty good match to me. So they should be the ones. Screwdriver. Okay, right, we're just going to give this a little clean up with a bit of sandpaper before the new disc goes on. I'll whip that out of the packet as well, so we have a quick look at it, make sure it's a match for the other one. God. Right, well, here we go. Oh, nice shiny disc. Looks right, and I'll just put them back to back, make sure that they are a perfect match. It looks like it to me. You can really see how badly worn that is. That's actually sticking out proud, whereas, you know, so we'll get those. So it's really important to give this a nice clean now. So I've just got a bit of sandpaper and perhaps here isn't a bad place to use a bit of copper grease or something like that, and just to stop any sort of further corrosion, and in future it should unstick really nicely as well if you need to get to it then. So you might be some of the curious out there might be wondering what this really strange shape tin is. It's the copper grease, but the reason it's in that shape is I got a confession, I accidentally ran over it in my car, so that's why it's in this shape. So but it still serves its purpose. So put a very thin layer of copper grease on there. There we go. So I just got a smear it on and just rub it. I do like putting new parts on. But there's the, there we go. And it's just these little grub screws in there. Make sure they line up nicely. A lot of discs, they spray them with the anti-corrosive you know, just an oil basically to, you know, for transportation, you know, and make sure they don't corrode. But these look like they've got no grease on them, they've actually been painted. So there's a paint design on there just to burn off as you use it. So that's one that normally I'd say make sure you get some brake cleaner on there and give them a good degreasing, but in this case I think they're fine. So we'll just put that on. You don't want to over tighten these as well, just pinch them in. That's plenty of this. Right, I think we can get on with reassembling. So we'll take these pads out, the old ones, and again here take the opportunity just to give these a good clean out. They're the little guides where their pads sit in there, so you can either take them right out, or in fact I've got a bit of a wire wool out. That's I'd highly recommend that. That's quite good for giving these a clean. They're just little stainless steel guides for the pads. You can see the difference there, the one I've just cleaned there. So do the same there. I think wire wool is probably one of the best things for this, to be honest, because if you use sandpaper you're likely to score the metal really, and that's the last thing you want. Because wire wool seems to just get the dirt off, and you're not damaging those guides at all really. So we'll get that back on there. I'm just loosely putting it on for now, not really taking. And then what I would recommend, where would I put the pads? There. Perhaps you could just put a tiny bit of copper grease just on the leading edges here on either side. That's not a bad idea, to be honest. Only a tiny bit. So you see, I'm keeping the pads together there because I don't want to get obviously any contamination at all on there. So just only the tiniest bit. There we go. That's plenty, that is. Back in. There's the other one, and then we'll get those in fairly tight. I'll have to find out the torque settings for these, I'm not sure yet. I'll get that in there. There is a bit of I've contaminated that slightly, so I will clean that up a bit. And then what we've also got to do here, some people have got a clever bit of kit for this, but I haven't got anything like that, is we need to retract that piston. And this is where you've got to watch, keep an eye on the brake levels, you know, you don't put too much. I'm hoping I can just push that back in. So here goes. It is going back in, yeah. Oh, that's tight. See if I can use a... There we go, that might be enough, we'll just give it a try. It's sort of going right back to the factory setting, so it needs to go in quite a lot. It shows how much it was worn. Oh, more still. Oh, there we go. Head back. Oh, we've still got to go. There we go. Just about got it. Make sure that these guide pins are lined up nicely. These back in. Bit. Oh, we struggled to do the top one before, didn't we? Because that brake line's in the way. So. That's basically it. So we'll give that a final tighten up. Basically it. We have our disc. Right, here we are back again. What was a simple, or what I thought was a simple day's job has ended up being 3 days, just because this wonderful British weather we have. What I've done is I've done 3 out of the 4 discs, so we got all the pads and discs done on there, and I've just got one more to do. And it's just simply because of this lovely British weather we have. When I'm a millionaire, I'll do some nice videos from my indoor workshop, nice heated workshop with all the fancy ramps. But until then, you just got to put up with my concrete drive, I'm afraid. So today we're just going to hopefully just do this one last one on this side, the old rusty knackered one there. So fingers crossed. It's looking quite cloudy, so I just need an hour or so, and I'll run through this last one. I didn't film the other rear one just because the weather was so rubbish, and I was just concentrating on getting it done, but hopefully I can show you how to do this one then. Access on here is a lot more difficult than the front brakes. You see that Torx bit I'm trying to get out and going in between the springs. That's to get the caliper carrier off, and there's also one on the top, but the brake pipe is in the way. So I just about managed to do the one on the other side, but I think I actually bent the brake pipe a little bit, which is not a good idea. But I might actually have to just disconnect the brake pipe there. It's steel as well, so it's not. You can't just bend it out of the way. Sort of thing. Well, you shouldn't. It's not flexible. So, in comparison to the front ones, the back ones are a lot more fidgety. And what I quickly discovered when I did the other ones is I tried to push the caliper, the piston back into the caliper, and because it's got this handbrake which operates the piston, which is a bit different to some other vehicles, you've actually got to twist in the caliper. So don't try to make the same mistake I did and spend a good half hour trying to push the piston back in. You'll get into quite a bit of trouble for that, but you do need a special tool which will sort of twist and push in back the piston. I've got one of those. I'll show you what that looks like, but believe it or not, I don't know if I can point up to the sky here, it has just started drizzling again. You can't make it up. So it's a horrible dark skies now, and so I'm umming and ahhing whether just to stop while I'm ahead or to carry on. Well, I'll have a little think now. Right, I've decided to bite the bullet and go for it, regardless of the weather. And what I'm going to have to do is take that, let's focus there, that brake pipe out. It's just in the way. I can't get to the brake caliper carrier nut there at the back. It's a Torx bit, size 50 if anyone's interested, T50. So I've always had, and I'd highly recommend it to anyone who's doing any brake system, repairing any brake systems, is one of these spanners, which is a brake line spanner or pipe spanner, whatever you call it. So it just slips over the pipe. And the one I've got here, let's see if we can focus on it. It's a 12mm and a 10mm on the other side. Guess what size the nut is? Yep, 11mm. So I've got to use an ordinary spanner. So hopefully I can take that off there. It's going to leak a bit of brake fluid for a while, but I'm not too bothered about that. And then I'll try to whip that other nut off. So hopefully it won't slip or anything, and I just got to use an ordinary spanner. It's bang on 11mm. You can see there. So we'll whip that off, and I'll let you know how I get on with that. Right, for some reason I can't get the camera to quite focus the way I'd like it to, but that brake line came off really easily. Right, here's the back disc. There's a cap on there. I've taken that off. I just used a screwdriver, and I had to bend that nut out, which is bent into there. And I've taken that off. That was very tight, but I've got a very good breaker bar here, so we got that off. So I'm just in the process. I've just undone these nuts here, so I'm going to whip those off now. But the pads are No, it did need changing, actually, feeling that there is a very big ridge on there, so they do need changing. So I'm hoping this will just all come off, and then the new one will just simply bolt back on. And I know that nut's got to be done to very tight. I think it's about 220 Newton meters or something like that, so we'll do all that then in a minute. Right, Theo? Right, here we are now. I've got the disc and the caliper off, so what we've got to do now is wind that back in. So that's the mistake I did on the other side. I tried to push it back in. So I've got this bit of kit here, which I'll show you it all set up, and we'll have a bash at that now. Okay. Right, this is the tool that you really need. I try to do it manually, but you've got to have this tool really to wind that piston back in. So it pushes and it twists at the same time. I just try to twist it like that, and you're just there forever. So we're going to give it a go. I've just set it all up, so here goes. Oh, there it goes. So hopefully we should see that going in. I've got a funny feeling I might have to keep this bit a little... Oh, am I doing that right now? It's the first time I've ever used this, so let's tighten that up. I might have to keep this part still while we tighten the other part up, so I'm going to just tighten that up again. See if that makes a difference. Right, here goes. So I'll keep that tight, and then I'll turn the other bit. Right, clockwise, isn't it? I'll get my bearings right here. Working, is it? Is it just loosening? Am I going over it? Am I turning it the wrong way? I'm losing the plot. Why can't I get this to work? You'd turn that clockwise, wouldn't you? Okay. Right, I think I figured it out. There's two of them here. That's it. Right hand and left hand. So we've got to swap them round. There we go, we've learnt something. I was wondering why there's two of them, so that explains it. Right, we'll have another go at that. I'll set it all up, and we'll have a bash at that. Typical man, look at the instructions after I've had a go. So I think I've got it right now. I've just swapped them round. This is our left hand side one. So I've also reconnected the brake pipe here, just for obvious reasons, just to pump the fluid back through the piston. So well, that feels, yeah, I can actually see the piston going back in. Right, we're making headway now. That is worth every penny, this tool, because I just got it from eBay, and it makes the job 100 times easier. You can see the piston's going right back in. I couldn't do that last time, so if you're doing this job, I've tightened that up right tight, and I'm just going to take a tiny bit off there. Just don't know why, I don't feel it should be very tight like that, so I just slacken it off the tiniest amount like that, and we'll give that a go. Right, excellent. There's a new disc on, new hub nut on as well. I think I might have mentioned on these discs as well, the disc is part of the bearing as well, so you're getting new bearing and you're getting the new disc all built in, and you've got to tighten that nut very tight. It's something like 220 Newton meters. People in the mechanical trade might know it as something else, TAF, so try to figure out what that stands for, and that's how tight we're going to tighten it up. So I just started off with a breaker bar like that, and I'll put the torques at the torque wrench later on, and then once you tighten it up to the right torque, you bend that back into the spline there, and then that's going absolutely nowhere. So I'll start to reassemble it now, and we'll see how we get on. This is a big test to see if these calipers fit on nicely after wound in that. Oh gosh, I can't. Right guys, if there's one really important lesson here, you've got to have this tool. That has made my life so much easier. I really struggled on the other side without that, so that is the be and all. This rewind the piston, the brake caliper piston in, so that's a must. It makes your life so much easier, worth every penny. Right, we've got it all back together. Lovely new pads. I've tightened that up to the right torque as well, 220 Newton meters, and I bent in the nut there, so that's not going anywhere. So the last job is just to put the wheel hub cover on, which was a little bit of a pain last time, but we'll give it a go. There's the old one. So we just bend that off with a screwdriver. Let's see how well we get on with this. I just wanted to say that even after disconnecting that brake pipe and just letting the brake fluid just run out, once I wound the piston back in and everything and bled the system, we're still really good with the brake level. We're sort of more or less bang on max there, so with the new pads and the thickness of the new disc, it sort of equaled itself out again, so that's another plus.